All right, let's call this meeting to order. It's Measure J Commission, November 15th meeting, 4:20 p.m. Ariana, I'll have you do roll call.
Vice Chair Sid, Craig, and Commissioner Marshall excuse themselves in advance. Commissioner Bixson? Here. Chair Gazan?
Here.
Commissioner Gray?
Here.
Commissioner Hammond?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Do we have a motion to accept today's agenda?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and do we have a motion to accept the minutes? I'll take a
I'll motion that we approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. This is the time for public comment. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Measure J Commission on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. Although the Measure J Commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. We will give each speaker 3 minutes. Do we have anyone? I also forgot to do our Pledge of Allegiance. So, Alana, would you like to lead us? All right, welcome everyone. We have until 5:15 today, and we're going to just move this along. I see we don't have anyone here from the city manager's office, so we'll move to Marla, our finance director's report.
Okay, our financial report has been updated. I'm hoping it's acceptable to everybody. The uptown parking structure has been increased for the additional funding that came in. Let's see. We also have revenue projections at the end. At the bottom of the report, if you notice that Measure J revenue through the month of October has increased 4.6% from the previous year. And that's basically the report. Is there any questions on it?
Yep, I have one question. The Cornelia White House restoration that was added to this particular, that's a new item, right?
That is in the budget. So I believe.
It was something someone added, because we didn't approve that, right?
That
As
was
a commission?
That was a budget adjustment that already occurred.
So the council members put that in there? Is that what you're telling me?
No, budget adjustments usually happen through departments throughout the year. So.
I guess why I'm confused is we never approved any money for the Cornelia White House as a Measure J commission.
Okay, let me get the source documents and bring it back next time, and then I will comment and update you on that at that time.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's where I had a concern as well. Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to staff report. And I will pass this on to Joelle.
Good afternoon. Last meeting, October 31st, the commission requested that staff provide additional information as far as funding for all the projects starting back in 2011-12. to the current year. Staff produced 3 different spreadsheets attempting to give the commission detailed information of all the projects that the Measure J fund has paid for or has been used for. The very first spreadsheet is a detailed spreadsheet, very difficult to read, but it's extensive. It shows from fiscal year 11-12 through fiscal year 18-19, every single project on the handout that was, I believe this particular handout didn't make it to the commission through email because I think it was deemed unreadable. But we did pass it out here for everyone. This particular, my goal was to try to show the commission all the money that has ever been allocated to projects and how that money is tracked from year to year to year. So what I did was create this big spreadsheet, but try to focus in on, I believe Don's going to bring it up on the screen and we'll look at it a little bit. It's kind of difficult to really make out. So you can see up on the screen, if we kind of zoom in at the very top, I think we can get in there. Well, my goal, what I was trying to do is send it to the commission so that if they have a computer easily available, they could look at it and really track every single project from year to year. So with that being said, if you zoom down a little bit, Don, there's a red box there that is highlighting the community projects. So community projects are broken up into 3 funds, 3 accounts actually, the community enhancements, community traffic study, and the community sidewalks. So if you follow that, the very first column is fiscal year 11-12, and it tracks all the way to 18-19, fiscal year 18-19. So we can stop here, and this is year 1 of the community hotspots, where about $1,027,000 was allocated. 27,000 was allocated for the projects, and that particular year, $32,000 were spent on the community hotspots project. So. The next year, you can see there's a little gap here. We may have to find out why there is, but the money left over is $944,000. That should have carried over exactly to the next column there for the next fiscal year. There is a gap here, but it's probably because of budget adjustments that occur throughout the year, correct?
The very first column that you're looking at that has the 9/11/725 is the current year funding. The following column is that plus budget adjustments and the continuation.
Okay, my apologies.
So if you look at the
Yes,
1906,
right.
that's everything combined.
Correct. You
So
can
it did
see,
follow.
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see that properly, but you can see the 941 goes to the next, tracks directly across, and it adds to the 911 to give you the 1,000,009.
It's the 994,861 plus 911,725 equals 19.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So you can,
If you look at item 4, page 4 of 9 on this spreadsheet, I know it's falling up there. I find it easier to follow your accent. So. Yeah, it's the same thing.
What page?
Page 4, yeah.
yeah, that is the wrong one. So the goal was creating these spreadsheets is to provide, all the information that we have at our disposal using the available software without creating, complicated spreadsheets. This is just, I don't know if this is complicated or not, but it just has a lot of information. But we could easily duplicate it, and we can carry it forward year to year. So And from that, we tried, because this is such a big spreadsheet, we created smaller spreadsheets that hopefully are a little bit more user-friendly. One of them I passed out earlier. Yes. So it's this particular format that we believe is a little bit easier to handle and to turn the page and to follow. So we're trying to show the exact same information from this bigger spreadsheet, but condensing it, removing all the lines that aren't pertinent to a particular fiscal year, and so it's easy to follow. As you turn the page, you can see the next fiscal year. And when you get to fiscal year 12-13 or 13-14, you start seeing projects that were completed at the bottom. So the goal is to create a format that is going to be easy for the commission to use, to give us direction, to drill down, ask questions about any particular project, and we can use this, the format that we choose to give you answers. So if there are projects that you're concerned about, you can highlight them and talk to us and send us emails, or in these commission meetings, we can take your notes and go back and research projects for you.
So what you'd like from us is to commit to one format, so we can just stay with one each time?
Correct.
Okay. Right.
What we brought forward is easily reproduced using the accounting software we have. So I'm open to questions. And
Well, first, this is all great. You've done both of you have done a terrific job, so thank you very much for putting this together. This is very, very helpful. As far as the format, either one of these I'm comfortable with. So whatever my colleagues would like to do, I prefer not to go back to this. But either one of these would be fine with me.
No, I think these are very helpful.
Yes.
But I also think it's very helpful to get that overall vision, even though we can't read it, of that 17-inch spreadsheet that shows all the projects. I mean, it is. We've done a lot of projects, and I think it's important to remember that and acknowledge.
do you believe that that is a format that you want to see sent out every year?
No.
I mean, every meeting? No? Oh.
No, in fact, I think that if we were to get that at the beginning of the year, that it would just, again, be something to carry in our notebooks that would remind us of this is where we've come, and then go to this and say, oh, okay, I get it.
I think that's very easily done. We can get caught up with all our financials by the end of the current year. And in our very first meeting in January, we sent out this 11 by 17 spreadsheet, or this spreadsheet with all the information together with a smaller version of it, just detailing the projects that were completed every year.
Of course, one thing we could also do, if the commission were to decide to do that, is a field trip every year to go back and look at all of the projects that we've done. I'm kind of joking about that too, Jim. But it used to be that commissions would go out on a bus and see all of these city projects that they were doing.
Okay,
And I think then the city bought lunch afterwards too.
That's probably
And there
where it
was
stopped.
probably a cookie involved in it.
So I'm looking at Ariana for that. Maybe she can take that on.
And I was laughing because, of course, you can suggest that now that you'll be retiring.
I won't get the cookies. It'll be recorded in the minutes.
I like this format too. The only suggestion I would have is, I realize the very first fiscal year is one page. and the second fiscal year is 2, and the next one is 2. If they could be printed so that I could put them in a note binder and say, this was fiscal year what, this was fiscal year next, this is fiscal year next, this is fiscal year next. Because eventually I could have, 15 years, and then I'd have a lot of pieces of paper. Well, this Measure J goes for 20-some years, right? So
Yeah, maybe, I
it
think what he's
just,
saying, like, not double-sided.
well, it could
in a
be
way.
double-sided, but.
Within its fiscal year, but not,
Right, but I think it's really, really helpful. I love the fact of showing what's completed and what still is a remaining balance, and I think it's very easy to read.
Right.
I agree, the big one is lovely, and if you want to send that electronically, I looked at it, and I guess I'm used to looking at these kind of spreadsheets, so I understood it. But you do have to blow it up in order to read it. And of course, the more years you add, the bigger it's going to get. So it's a useful historical document, but I think for a working document, this is much easier to digest.
I totally agree.
And that is actually almost you're seeing the true up every time we meet. If we give this document to you every meeting, you're actually seeing what's happening every single time.
Right, but I'm not sure, I mean, if we had this and everybody had it at the beginning of the year, if they were a new commissioner and they had it at the beginning of every year, I don't know that I need it every meeting to go back to fiscal 11 and 12. I've got it right here in front of me.
Every quarter.
you would only need the current.
I would only need the current or the past 2 years or something. I mean,
Okay.
I don't, it's great, but I would put it in my binder. I would be able to look back, but I don't want this much paper every meeting. I don't need to go back to 11 and 12. I only need maybe to go, I certainly would need to go back to the past fiscal year, and perhaps projects that are ongoing that are not finished are important. But once a project's finished, it's kind of like, it's finished. I don't need to go back that far. For historical purposes, it's true, but not for the working monthly meeting.
And I would like to thank you for all of this good work. This format, I think once a year, I agree, would be very helpful.
So I have a few questions in regards to this whole report. So a lot of the monies that we're looking at, these are capital projects that kind of fall under general fund of the city. We have earmarked them that, yes, Measure J funds can be spent towards this. It's the ultimate say of council, where, they want to pull out of that pot of money for these different. So we're always going to see these capital projects listed, and it's either it's gonna have its revised budget, its actual expenditure or not expenditure, meaning that trust that it just hasn't been done yet, and then a remaining balance. So the remaining balance is not like, oh yay, we've got $10 million to play with. Out of that, there might be $7 million of unfinished business and other miscellaneous. So that's one area that I see in this. The other area that I think, we want to be mindful of as a commission is the community projects. And I see that, it's highlighted in here. And when I got into the nitty-gritty today of really going through every single project for the hotspots for the last 3 years, I see a lot of money that's not going to get spent. So, and that's basically the little report that I made. Now, again, it's not going to be accurate based on your comment that there has been some money spent in studies. That doesn't show up on your report. And that report is, for everyone's benefit, is what was emailed out, and it's the Measure J detailed list of community projects.
Correct. That does not
So-
reflect the work done on the projects. That was
Right. So I looked at that, and then I came up with my own kind of spreadsheet to look at where the monies are going within each calendar year. And I don't know if you want to look at that real quick. And my goal is I would love to put to bed a lot of this hotspots. And if stuff is not going to get done, then it's done. And we need to move on. And maybe we can uncover new hotspots. Maybe we have to try harder in areas where it is truly a rough spot for the city. And it might involve working with the tribe, might involve working with the federal government to get some of these things. And I'm not talking about a random stop sign because Betty Boop wants a stop sign. These are, kind of major areas that seem to be a gripe citywide and present, kind of a dangerous situation when we look at hotspots. So as I looked at this, and again, I took your numbers and what your status updates were, and so then I categorized it. So if you look at my printout, I have years 2015-16, and right now in the hotspots, you have earmarked being projects that could potentially be funded by the ATP fund, and it totals the $827,000 and change. We move over. Out of that first year of hotspots, $132,500 was deleted. So that's dead. The stop sign's not going to be put there. Maybe it's a traffic signal, maybe it's a crosswalk, but your study has shown it's not happening.
Well, let me elaborate a little bit on that.
Sure.
The 132,500 that you mentioned there, that's not, the reality is that the projects that were funded, the sidewalk gap closure that I talked, that was actually bid, designed, and was applied for the ATP grants, came out to a lot more than the $1 million that were actually present that first fiscal year. So truly that money is actually, we need more money to complete the hotspots that were combined into the project that was bid out. So that's why I was, it's difficult to compare the actual funds with the spreadsheet that we put out there, the one you just mentioned earlier, because the money, it just, the analysis doesn't work.
No, and I realize my numbers are based off of your estimates.
Right.
And I realize, like if you look at the number in green, the unused dollars, I know realistically we do not have $962,000. And I realize that even under the deleted projects that didn't happen, there might have been some cost out of that $132,500 estimate for those projects, and we know that's an estimate, but there may have been some hard cost from your department to even do this study. So again, I just categorize based on your estimates. Obviously, the completed totals hopefully are accurate, and as far as we look at years 2015-16, we paid only $3,125 was completed. And then obviously in your true up in here, it totals up to 32,000 because there were studies and.
That would be the accurate number for that
Right.
fiscal year. It would be the 32,000 that was spent.
So I guess, and I don't know that this is the time to look at this because this is more in depth, but I just don't want this project to keep lingering. I'm tired of looking at numbers and paper on all of this. And I mean, we go back as far as fiscal year 15-16, and we still have all this outlaying stuff. And at the end of the day, there is going to be a big pot of money left over, technically, out of that $1 million allotment, I would think.
Yeah, and then in the spreadsheet, you can see that it's carried over to the next year. And if you go to the very last year of the community projects, that money is still sitting there.
Can I just
Sure.
add a comment? I know, Jim, you're familiar with my metaphor about going to Home Depot and doing a project. That these projects are just not like going to Home Depot, getting the materials you need, and finishing the project over the weekend. And with, well, with sidewalks as an example, it took months to go through and identify all of the sidewalk projects, to design them so that they were ready for a bid process. And they didn't get done in the year that we had anticipated they would get done because they had to do all the preliminary work. And I think these are very important projects that have been identified, and once they are completed, will be amazing safety projects for pedestrians, for sidewalks, and some of these projects for bicyclists as well. And I hate to even hear you say that you don't want to look at them anymore, and maybe it's just getting them done. And
Yeah, that's what I mean by that.
But we're
I
now
don't
we're
want them
waiting-
deleted. I want, and I realize a lot of this, we're waiting for these
ATP grants, right?
grants.
Exactly.
I
And-
think we could also, if I may, take the hotspots list and really combine it into truly what it translates to the engineering world and how we bid the projects and where they live, because they don't live exactly the way the names are there. They were morphed into bigger projects. And I think we could do the hotspot list justice by finding out exactly where it is and where it actually is in the project that is currently bid. And then the list would be a true realistic list of what we are gonna build.
Yeah, and I'll clarify, I don't want to see anything that's out there not complete go away. It's more about what can we do, and I realize we're at the mercy of finding out about these grants, but other than that, what can we do to move a project forward to kind of get it off the balance sheet, get the project completed? You know, I'm nervous too when I look at a lot of this ATP grant qualifying. Does that mean that we can, if we get the grant funds, we can actually do the project? Or then could some of these turn into, oh, it's deleted because the property owners don't want it, or, we've got, I'm just curious if it was applied for a grant, are we pretty solid that, yeah, this will get done?
If it is in the list or in the project that we bid, that council asked us to go for more money, that project is gonna get done either with the Measure J funds that were allocated, because you can see that they're still there, or with the actual ATP grant.
And as far as we know, we're not posed with a problem that it could be deleted because of property owner or deferred for a traffic study or something like that. These are kind of a done deal if we get the grant money.
Yeah, if I remember from Marcus in the last meeting, when all said and done, we had like $2.2 million that we would save, right? But he's already wants to spend that money on another CVAC project. So they're already looking to move that money right away, right into another project. So I don't think any money's gonna go away. The money that we save will go just into another pot. The ones that I'm a little bit, not really confused about, I think I know what this, but the yellow ones here on this list, now those are, if I understood correctly, and I may not have, these are actual projects that are not going to get done.
No, those are the ones the city is asking you and us to give direction on.
They want funding for it.
They want funding.
They want funding for these.
These are,
Well,
Yeah,
they're
these are
already in the budget.
proposed.
They've already been, we've already approved that money. They want to know where do we want to go ahead with that project?
Oh, see, I misunderstood that. I thought these were projects that they decided not to
No,
fund.
they're
and-
asking for direction.
I thought the direction is what do we want to do with the money now that we have it?
So
Okay, I misunderstood that.
to use the library infrastructure for an example, that's in that particular box that you're talking about, from what I understood, the library may go to COD. There's other things that could happen, right.
Meet with them to find out.
Right, so what happens with that money? What do? We can
Yeah, I had
move
that
it
all
to a different project, that's kind of that's what we want to know.
Okay. Thank you, that helps.
This is a little bit off, but I'm going back to your comment about the Cornelia White House, and you didn't understand how that money got in there. It goes all the way back to fiscal 2015-16, when City Council approved $200,000 to do that project.
On the, separate from the commission.
Well, they were taking it out of Measure J, but
Okay,
yes.
okay.
And then, if you look, they've put that out to bid, and now this fiscal year, they need another $100,000 to finish that project.
Okay.
And that's where that money is coming from. So if you looked at this detailed list, it's been in there since 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. They're just now doing it, and now they've already spent some of that money, but they have not spent all of it and need, obviously, more money once the bids came in. So I think that answers our question. It went to 306,458 instead of 200,000.
And if I could just interject, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This would probably be very similar to the Wellwood Murray Library project that we did 3 or 4 years ago, where we went in with an estimate, but once you start the project, there are all kinds of different things that need to be done to make it a good, solid foundation or walls to build the project on. And the Cornelia White House is another one of those that was built with railroad ties, and the only thing holding the roof up, it seems, was prayer.
Yeah. Yeah, what confused me is Cornelia White House has been on proposed budgets since I've been on this commission. But we have never, since I've been on this commission, approved any money for it. So that's where I didn't go back far enough to realize that prior to me coming on this commission, there was money set aside for it.
Correct.
Okay. It just seemed
Just
interesting
not
it showed
enough.
up.
What's showing up is the deficit that they need. Just like the park, they're going to need more money.
But that deficit seems to have come about since you've been on the commission, I think.
No, the deficit came about because the project went out to bid, but I'm not sure we're all paying attention to the bids that are coming in. City Council is, it's a city council project.
Right, right.
That one in particular is, they're working on it right now, and they're discovering some railroad ties and glue and gum that's holding the thing together.
All right, do we have any other questions?
Hopefully, with all the data that I provided, we could kind of start moving forward and giving the commission, clear information, and we're able to every month answer the questions that you have.
I think one of the things that some commissioners might like is that if action is taken by City Council, say last night, or the night before, or the last meeting before that, that involves Measure J funds. In other words, they needed to take money from blah, blah, blah. That would be reported by the city manager at the beginning of every meeting. So in other words, any action that they're taking that we, like you don't know, well, all of a sudden this shows up on our budget. Well, it happened, I'm sure, at City Council, but unless you're reading City Council minutes, we don't always get that information. So I think that would be useful to us so that we're not like, oh, where did that come from? It came from an action at City Council, but we don't always know that because they don't report it to us.
Sure, Marla.
Specifically on the Cornelia House, that was a budget adjustment. The city manager, as well as the finance director,
has the discretion to move money throughout budgets. So it happened to be, yes, 200,000 was sitting there. They needed more money, and in the city's Measure J money, it's allocated to projects. We've got the million for community projects, but we have the other money. We also have a line item that's right below the yellow one that's in blue on the big sheet, and that's called unscheduled projects, where money is moved where needed. So that was actually, didn't go to council, it was a budget adjustment that did go through finance department, did go through the city manager for approval, did not go to council, but it was more money for an existing project that was needed out of unscheduled money that's sitting in the Measure J fund, just so, for clarification.
So actually, by putting it in here, you were letting us know.
This was a true-up of where everything was as of last week, but we do have budget adjustments that happen throughout the year. I know in the past they haven't come here because they were kind of looking at new funding in the past for the commission and focusing on community properties, but the money does move throughout the year by budget adjustments, sometimes by council, but a lot of times the budget adjustments are not by council action. That's through finance and city manager, just so you're aware of that.
So I guess that would be part of the finance director's report each month, would be useful to say that we took this money from, I know you said it's a budget adjustment.
It's a budget adjustment.
But you clarified that a little bit more by saying it came from money in line item whatever, and we moved it from this line item to that line item. And that helps.
If your
helpful.
desire is to take this last column with everything for fiscal year 19 and make that your emphasis for this meeting, and we highlight community projects, we tell you everything, we can do that. So this gave you an overview. We could focus in, if you wanted, on fiscal year 19 now, every month, and tell you if there are changes,
Well,
if you want that part of it.
If it's going to affect the amount of money that we have to spend, then we need to know. I mean, that's the simple answer to that question, is right now, we got 100,500, so now we have less money in our unallocated funds, right? So we need to know that. So yeah, that's great.
But my understanding is this was city unallocated, not, because I thought the commission just focused on the million, the community projects, the ones that are highlighted in yellow.
No, that's not right.
Okay, then I have a misunderstanding then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know that pot is moved throughout the year.
Yeah, there are some, the community projects are something that, we wanted to look at specifically, but we also look at the entire Measure J funds per year. So it is important that we know if, in fact, because at the end of a fiscal year, there could be money left over that we could move if it's not allocated. But we wouldn't know that if they're moving things around like that. So that's...
Things are always moved.
So that's what's useful, I think, to know if, obviously if it's $20 or $30, that's not what I'm talking about. $100,000, $50,000, those are things that we kind of notice, and they add up. So, I understand that you probably move, when bills come in, they can be 5 to 10% contingency. But I think what we're looking at, or thinking we're looking at, are projects that all of a sudden we didn't remember were happening or that are going to happen. But it also may be that at the beginning of a fiscal year, it's good, obviously in the report, when we know something's gone out to bid, obviously then we know that pretty much that money is going to be used within the next 12 months. And therefore, it's going to be used. Sort of like the Andes project, it sat there and sat there and sat there, and now all of a sudden we realize, oh, maybe that money isn't going to be used, or they're going to get money from somewhere else, and so we can move that money to something else. But, it's never going to be perfect, but I think it's helpful to have as much information as possible without being nitty-gritty. I don't know that we need the tens down to the dime.
I think it's going to be really helpful to you when we start going through unfunded capital projects and start making decisions on things and what we are going to recommend and everything. And so, once we go through that process, you'll see what we're talking about here. At the end of the day, in May, we will recommend how to spend all the money.
Are you guys okay on heat, air here? Just a question. It was bad over there. I didn't want to affect you.
No, we're fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I have a question for more of the senior commissioners that have been, so, senior meaning varsity.
Long-term.
I'm still JV here. Last year, when we went to council, we basically recommended only 5 projects, and that was based on leftover monies, I believe.
No, it was based on our entire budget. It's all the money all the money that we had for that given year.
Correct.
What we did unique this last time was we made recommendations that cost more than our budget, with the idea that there were some opportunities out there that there would be extra funds. And so in our recommendations, which we were asked to do that, so it was $4.9 million. I can't remember exactly how much we had.
Right, but that's not the full 14 million.
No, it's just the money
It
that's
was the
available.
money that was available. So
Exactly.
when I look at all these projects, and I'll just look at it for this year, 2018-19, did we have a say in this entire list of all of these projects?
At one
Or-
point in time, we did.
Yeah,
Did we?
Staff brings them. Staff brings those projects.
So
to
we
us.
have a say on the new trolley shuttle? Because right now it's falling under our budget of, 330,000.
I don't think it's come to our commission yet.
Right, but it's on this report.
That
Right,
was
and you're gonna-
that was roll forward money, I believe.
Yes,
You're-
that
Are
was
you talking about, that's roll forward money that was left over.
For the past
Yes,
buzz or what?
yes. That was the buzz and money was being used. Right, but there's still some money, I believe, lingering.
Correct.
That's a balance that's still there, residual value.
This 330 is the balance. And where are you seeing that coming from?
We had,
remaining
we had,
balance.
we had a budgeted Measure J money for the trolley in years past, and that's what's still left. They didn't spend.
Okay, yeah, that always looked like they spent every allotment of that, I don't know. All right, so I'm a little confused
Well,
on
they
that.
cut it off in the middle of a year, and so therefore there was money left over,
Okay,
a fiscal year. They did not run it through the fiscal year. They didn't run the trolley all the way through the fiscal year. Therefore, the allocated funds that have been allocated were not spent.
okay. So looking at this entire list, we've had a say on this at one point or another,
Yes.
on all of this. Okay.
Is it next week?
But back to what you were saying, Jim, you see that, there are 2 library things on here, the library infrastructure phase 1, and then there's a library planning. So those are the things that are still budgeted. There's money there, but that's why city council is asking for direction.
Right.
Because some of these projects on here have been on there for many years, and we don't know where they're going to go.
Right.
I have a question. All these yellow items, the council needs direction. Where can we find a short description of what each one is? I mean, some of them are self-explanatory, but what is this building microfilm to intern? There are a couple of them that are,
So I believe the
that are-
building and safety department is gonna allocate money to have an intern microfilm all of their files.
okay.
And
Yeah.
so,
And we think that the project is complete, but the money is still there, so what do we do with it? that.
Oh.
So I think we can provide a brief description of each one of those for the commission.
That would be perfect. That's what, remember when they did that for us for the
Right.
meeting last May?
Right.
Yeah, if we could just get, just for these, highlighted in yellow, a brief description, because, so we have a better understanding of exactly what these projects are.
And Michael, is this kind of queuing
Thank
us
you.
up for what we're going to be looking at in 2019 as recommendations to council, these that are highlighted in yellow?
Well, these are direction they're asked for, but they're separate. We're gonna see a list of unfunded capital projects, probably in the next meeting, I can't remember now, that we'll start narrowing down.
Okay.
And we'll
And
start
does
with,
that kind of come out of this?
No.
no.
These are
You'll-
old
you'll-
projects.
Oh,
there'll be
these are
some-
old.
There'll be some that'll carry over from last
were
year
all
that we
voted
did not
years
recommend.
past.
Then there'll be new ones that come in. And then we will narrow we started with 60-some last year, and we got it down to 5. I anticipate we'll have 60-some again this year, and we'll probably have to narrow it down to 5 or 6. And that's what, once we get done with the audit, all of our time is spent on these unfunded capital projects, so we can make recommendations. And the dollars that are important for that are the 2 columns. The 2018, 2019, 2019, 2020, so the 2.5245 plus the 5650, those total go out to the 2020. So when we end the year and make our recommendations, those will be the dollars we'll work from.
Right.
Got it. But this is not looking in the past completely.
Yes, it is.
Well, how is it if they need direction?
To move forward, the council wants to know, do we want to continue these projects?
Right.
So in other words, we're going to go to the library board as example. In 13, 14, the library came and asked for $46,057.13 for computers. That was done. They asked for $150,000 for library planning. Not done. Then several years later, they came and asked for, or the city asked for, I don't know what year that would have been, but, but anyhow, that's where it is in those previous years. Yeah, here we go, infrastructure in 15, 16, $500,000. So that was approved in 15, 16. It's just sitting there.
Yeah, another example is the bike lanes, the CMAC bike lanes. I think Marcus made mention of that last meeting, that from where he stands, the bike lanes are completely done. This is still money that's sitting there. That money could be used for, right.
Okay.
Same with the library, as we were
And
talking.
So these are kind of projects that have dried up.
Yeah, like
or
the
finished
Bilardo
not.
Church lot, I believe,
here's
is
the end
not
guys,
at.
the $2 million.
No, I get that one.
So they're all different, and some of them may die, and some of them may continue on.
And they want our direction
they
on
want-
whether that should die or continue on.
Right.
That's what those are. Christine, I think.
Yep, I would just like to add about the bike lanes. He was referring to road diets, that we were done with road diets, or appeared to be done with road diets. And until an assessment can be done that the bike lanes actually connect to other bike lanes and go someplace, I don't think we're done. And I just want to say that, and I'd love to see it in the minutes, but I know that won't happen. But I think there's still more to do with bike lanes, so I don't want the public to feel like we're done with bike lanes, or the commission to feel like we're done, because we still need to do that kind of assessment.
And that's the kind of direction we can give.
Right.
That they're asking for, so that makes sense. May I make a recommendation? It is 5:09, we only have the room till 5:15, and we have 2 more items. One that we have ignored for a long period of time, the library subcommittee, that I know is near and dear to David's heart. So could we move to the discussion about the December meeting and the library subcommittee, and then we can renew our discussion on the finance in the next meeting?
Yeah, I agree.
Works for everyone.
So we'll move on to, let's jump to 5B in old business, because we already kind of talked on hotspots. So, and that's in regards to the scheduling of the December meeting. At the last meeting, we did all agree that we wanted a December meeting, and it was just the availability of this room. So Ariana had an update on that.
The available date is December 6th. It would be at the same time, 4 p.m. So if you guys are in agreement.
Oh, should I write that in ink?
What do you vote on? I will say, I still think we're shortening our discussion on the spreadsheets and everything like that right now, that we should have the meeting December 6th. So I will vote that yes, we should have a meeting December 6th.
Okay, so is that?
Not the 20th.
So the 30th.
No, the 20th is, this would take place of the 20th.
Right, this would take place of the 20th.
And do we have, should we vote on having a meeting with the five of us?
Yeah,
first off?
I'll make a motion to have the meeting moved to December 6th.
Okay. I'll second it. Can I second? All right, I'll second. All in favor of having a meeting in December? Or do we want to go right for the 6th?
Specifically December 6th.
December 6th. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So we have five of us. Hopefully we'll have
Well, that's-
John and Mark as well,
That's a quorum.
and Sid.
One of them can't make it. I can't remember which one, but one of them won't be here.
Okay,
We don't know
Yeah,
until.
then we're going back to 6th.
all right. And then that will be our farewell meeting as well for the commissioners that are leaving the commission.
So we'll need single malt.
Okay. Moving on to new business, we need to appoint, is it two members that, I thought it was one, but it is going to be two members to the library subcommittee. And I'll just start out that I definitely highly recommend David Gray, of course, with his experience working with the library, and I'll open it
second.
up. Second, all right. So for the first position, all in favor of,
David has to.
oh, David, do you accept that nomination?
Yes.
Okay. So a motion to vote for David? And I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're unanimous. Do we have any recommendation for a second commission member?
You're going to be reporting, giving direction, and you're the liaison, so I think that's a good,
Aye.
and you're going to be on the commission for
Ever.
a while.
I had brown hair when I started this, I want you to know. Okay, I'll accept.
You accept? All right, all in favor of Commissioner Johnson as the liaison?
I'm sorry.
Or do I
who-
need a motion?
Who needs
A motion?
I move.
David, you need a
Second.
Okay. All in favor of Commissioner Johnson? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No one? So congratulations, you're on another subcommittee.
Yay.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, the library director did know that I was on Measure J commission, so we have spoken, and she had suggested that, you know, the way this would work is that we would notify her and the Board of Trustees that we wish to meet with them to discuss this. We would also need to CC the city's board liaisons who are councilors Holsted and Middleton. And so I don't know how soon that will happen. I'm not sure they have a board meeting in December, so I think we will request probably the January board meeting to do this. And ask them about these projects and anything else. But that's how I think we will be proceeding, if that meets your approval.
Yeah, no, and it'd be great if you take lead, because you know all of these people. But we do need to emphasize to them that we need to have a meeting in January, because we are going to start going through the unfunded capital projects. And so we're going to have to talk with them of what kind of proposal they can come up with that we can get them on the list.
I think that they would, we will request it, and hopefully they would put it on the board meeting. They are down one commissioner, and they'll have 2 new ones by January, so I don't think that they probably will want to do it before then, but, and
That's
there are-
fine. No, I
but-
don't want to do it before
but-
then either.
But basically, we just make a request to meet at their next board meeting.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, it will be public record, so we have to do it at a board meeting.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, we'll move on to public comment. Any public comment? Staff member comments? Commissioner comments? Do we have a motion? Yes, Marla.
Before you adjourn.
I wanted to remind you that the motions that went forward of what funding would be used for this year, council hadn't approved it, but they recommended a subcommittee meeting, and I believe Mr. Johnson, Commissioner Johnson, is on that, and that will be on the 27th of November.
Okay, yeah, no one.
Nobody's informed you?
Yeah,
I didn't see your name on there.
I saw it in the notes, and so I sent an email to Christine. Is it Christine or Christina? Christina. But I haven't heard back from her.
It's at 4 o'clock, small conference room next door on the 27th is what's on my calendar.
Okay, all right.
So
That's
I
very
just
helpful.
wanted to remind you that we voted, or you voted on a representative, and it is
Right, right.
occurring before the next meeting here,
Okay.
so
November
that you're aware of that.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
We haven't asked for, oh, did you?
I asked
We
for,
did ask for
I
commissioner
move,
comment.
we adjourn.
I second.
we are adjourned. Thank you.